Okay, so here's part three. We are looking at this circle in the top right corner and the rectangle in the bottom left. They are related by color. We saw that when we went and looked at the color picker. And remember, if we double clicked on one of these little rectangles over here in the layers panel, you'll see that that color picker comes up and this whole box is filled with the same set of colors here. So what I might do is I might, let me cancel out of that for a second. And I might go and see if I can add something to the background now that'll kind of make this picture a little bit different. How do we do that? Well, let's click on the background. But one of the things I'll tell the students, and I'll say to you too, is don't ever work on the background layer because then you're kind of stuck with it. So what I would have them do is click on the background layer, but then go to the bottom of the layers panel and you'll see a little create a new. Click, that's the one you want. That's the one that looks like all the other create a new Word document. Everything else has the same kind of icon. Isn't that kind of funny? A folded page, we like that. So here's this new blank layer, and it's underneath. There are two layers above it, and the background is underneath it. So what we're going to do is put something in this, and it'll be above the background layer, but it'll be below these. Okay, so what do we want to put in there? Well, we could put anything in there. We could put a photograph from online. We could just put a straight up color in there. We could do any little combination of things we'd like to do. But here's what I would suggest, just to play around with the idea of value a little bit more. So we're going to take the two colors that we've got here, and the way to do that is to grab the eyedropper tool over here. Here's my eyedropper tool. I'm just going to click one time on the circle, and what I've got over here on the left hand side is that color became the foreground color. Well, I'd like to add this color to this set. The way to do it is to click on this little double-headed arrow or touch the letter X, all kinds of keyboard shortcuts in Photoshop. Just click on the arrow, it'll flip it, so now the next color that I choose will go here. If I go over to that orange, click, aha, now we've got the yellow-orange to the darker yellow-orange, and those two colors are what I'm going to use to create a background here. So a background that's going to really work with value might be a gradient, because a gradient changes slowly from one color to another. And you can kind of see the little icon there. The gradient tool starts with the letter G, and if I were any place else in Photoshop and I wanted to get to the gradient tool, all I'd have to do is touch the letter G on the keyboard, and it puts me right in the gradient tool. So I'll come up to the top here in our options bar, and I'll take a look to see what two colors are here. And this little drop-down menu right there shows you the default colors. Now there's all kinds of things. You could do stripes, you could do all kinds of crazy gradients and rainbow stuff and all this. But this first one is the one I'm looking for. So I'm going to click on that one to make sure that it says foreground to background. So it's going to use those two colors that I just selected. Okay, let's start with this gradient. This is the linear gradient. So I'm going to back this up. Remember, it's going to start with one color here, and it's going to end with another color. To do that, in the picture, I'll click, hold the mouse down, and drag. And where I start, it will start with one color and end up with the other color. So here I go, down the bottom left-hand corner, and I know I'm in the right layer. There's layer 1. I know it's empty because checkerboard says it's empty. It's transparent. I'm going to back this up. I'm going to put my cursor over in the bottom right corner. And I'm going to click, hold the mouse down, and drag all the way to the other corner, and then let go of the mouse. Interesting. So how does value affect the way we perceive objects? If the value is very close to the color of the object, we might kind of lose it in the mist, so to speak. So right off the bat, this becomes, for me anyway, a little bit more interesting than the other one. So we've got a couple different things going on. We've got some value in the background. We've got our shapes. And now we've got this different kind of composition. Same thing as before. You could still have the students go up to image, image rotation, and start moving things around. They could even flip the canvas completely. So if I do that, flip horizontally, watch what happens to the picture. Aha. Is it better there? If I don't like something I've done, all I want to do is touch Command Z or Control Z on a PC, and it will undo what I just did. So there we go. Back to that original. You can go up, certainly, and try all kinds of different ones and see what you like. Why not? Okay, so here's our little design. We kind of like it. Kind of losing some of our pieces there. One of the things you could say to the students at this point is, let's go click on one of the other layers. And remember, if you use the Move tool, there's your Move tool. And the Move tool is set to auto select and layer. That's good. Whichever piece I click on now, it will move. And in this case, layer 1 is also movable because it is not locked, like the background would not move in the other movie that we just did. So let's try this. I'm just going to click on the ellipse. I'm going to click, hold the mouse down, and drag this. Now watch what happens. Aha, did it look as bright as it was before? That's a different composition altogether now, isn't it? At any time while your students are making these little compositions, they could always save them out as. And to do that, you'd go to File, and you'd say, oops, Save As. And I always tell them to save as, not save, because if they hit save, they'll save over whatever else they've done. In this particular case, it wouldn't be too bad because they've got a lot of layers. But save as is the way to go. So I would say save as, and then I would put this someplace, maybe on my desktop, maybe even in a new folder called JPEGs for class. And I'll say create. Now I've got a new folder called JPEGs for class, and I'm going to save this, but not as a Photoshop document. I'm going to save this as a JPEG. So if I click on JPEG and say save, it comes up with a little preview. How big do I want this to be? Well, for the purposes of this class, if I move this all the way to the right and wait if this preview is on, you'll see that even the largest JPEG here is only 60K, very tiny. Should load very fast. We shouldn't have any problems taking a look at it online. So this is what I would have you guys do. Go through, make a couple of choices, and say OK. And now you've got that one saved. Okay. So let's take a look at doing a little bit of cropping, let's say, in this particular image. I'm going to go back and move this. I want to try and create a different composition just by moving some things around here, by cropping in the space. So to crop this, what I want to do is take the crop tool, and that's the C tool if you just touch C. And you should get something like this at the top where it says ratio, and this stuff should be clear. And if you've got anything in there, hit clear. And I'm just going to click and drag. Now this, when I click on it, is going to give me that rule of thirds grid. We kind of like that, don't we? We can move this around and say, you know what? I want something right on that rule of thirds there. There we go. Maybe that's an interesting composition. Maybe not. We're talking about proportion. We're talking about the weight of that shape in that top corner. I'm going to hit enter. Different. Totally different. Save it. File. Save as. And this time, make sure you're in the same folder, JPEGs for class. And we're going to save it as a JPEG. But this time I want to give it a name, and I should have changed the name on the other one, but we'll call this one Crop 1. And I'll put my initials in there just so that I know that it's mine. And let's see, we'll call it Orange. And I'm going to hit save. And again, it pops up, only 41K, very small size file. These will load very, very easily when we try to send them over the internet.